I recently made this table for my wife, and when making the table, I had a fair number of holes and cracks in the top that had to be filled. So you'll see all these wormholes here, some more in the back. I'll go ahead and take this off the tripod. Crack there, here, underside there, and then the edge, both edges. So in this video, I'm going to show you how I went about filling all those holes and cracks. I would encourage you to, for future videos, to continue to watch as I will show you more aspects of the construction of this table. Right here I have a crack that I'm about ready to fill with the epoxy, and it's running right through the board. So what I'm going to do is seal it with CA glue. If it were a smooth surface, I'd probably just tape it. This is thick CA glue, so it's not actually going to soak in. And I sprayed it with the accelerator to keep it from soaking in, so that it basically sets up with contact, and then I'll just sand it off later. If you don't take this step that I'm doing here, the epoxy will run out the backside. Because I want the epoxy to soak in there as much as possible. Hit it again. We have a crack right here. We're going to do the same thing. Already sprayed some accelerator on it. Epoxy will come right off the end. Repeat this process with any crack that goes through the board or extends to the end of the board. The epoxy I'm using is a 1-to-1 ratio epoxy. It is good for gaps up to 3/8 of an inch. The working time is 45 to 60 minutes. Here I'm using some black dye. Just put in enough to get the epoxy to the color you want. The manufacturer recommends that you mix it for 2 to 3 minutes. Apply the epoxy until it is level with the top of the hole or crack. If you have a deep crack or hole, the epoxy will continue to seep to the bottom. So you're going to have to revisit each of these areas until it stops seeping in. The epoxy does have a fairly long working time, so you have plenty of time to work the epoxy into the holes and cracks. I have flipped the board over, and you can see right here, that's where the black has come right up to where I basically sealed that crack, and all of that would have just run right through there had I not done that. You can see right there where it has seeped through. So I've the other side has set up, so we'll turn it over. This is the back side. Still got to get rid of these cracks. If they were just in the center, it wouldn't matter, but on the end here, they'll be seen, so you pretty much have to fill the whole thing. So we'll go ahead and do that now. One thing I forgot to mention is your surface should be fairly level. Doesn't have to be perfect, but if this is much lower than here, you'll end up with a void down here because it'll flow downhill. I didn't do this. However, it might be a good idea to spray a clear coat like lacquer on the area around where you are to fill with epoxy. The epoxy can seep into the wood fibers, resulting in a lot of extra sanding. So I decided not to fill all the holes with epoxy, and partly that was because with epoxy you have to find both ends of the hole, or it's just going to run out the other end, and I won't have that problem using CA glue, which is what I'm using here. So I'm just using some sawdust, real fine sanding sawdust. You could use the stuff that I've made up to this point, but that is really coarse. So this is super fine sawdust that basically won't have you won't see the various bits of grain or granules. Just using a card to kind of spread the dust around. If you gotta put a lot, you just tip the bottle. Of course, that's, you know, the problem with doing that is it does want to run everywhere. And this is stick fast thin CA glue. And I'm just using some hobby foam as like a paintbrush. To apply it to where we want it to go. And because it's so thin, it'll soak in a good ways. And you'll have hardness that'll go beyond the surface. Here I'm just gonna add a little more dust and a little more glue to make sure that the voids have been completely filled. So once you've done that, take accelerator, so stick fast accelerator, it's aerosol, and just give it a quick spritz. This will make it set up immediately. So all that glue is dry, and some of it was already setting up. So once you have completely filled the void, you can just sand the glue flush with the wood. So here you can see the edge of the table. Underneath the bark was a lot of worm-eaten wood, and that's not exactly the look that I want. So I am going to sand the bulk of that away and then fill the deeper voids. To sand this, I'm going to use a right angle drill. It's going to be a little easier to control, and it also rotates at lower RPMs. I'm using a backer pad. It's a hook and loop. It's medium density foam, and I've got a 3 3/8 disc on there, although a 3-inch will work just fine as well. And it is 80 grit sandpaper. On this side of the table, you can see that I've already sanded it, and this is the look that we are going for. So I just want to show some of this in real time so you get a feel for how long this is going to take. As I said, I am using 80 grit sandpaper. I could get the show on the road a little faster using a coarser grit, but it would give me less control. And my goal is to maintain the natural feel and look of the edge as much as possible. I'm just trying to remove all the worm tracks. To fill the wormholes, I am using this black medium thickness CA glue, also known as super glue. I have found that filling the wormholes with this medium black CA glue was much easier than putting sawdust in the holes and then using the thin CA glue. And what you got to do is just put some of the CA glue into the hole and then let it soak in a little bit, and then I spritz it with the activator, and then I add a little bit more CA glue to fill the hole the rest of the way. And it's okay, of course, to put too much of it on, as we can just sand it flush with the wood once we're done. I would say it's also advisable to do this a day or two in advance of actually doing the finish sanding on the edge, as you can reveal pockets of wet CA glue that did not set up from the activator. Please continue to watch, as in future videos I am going to do more and more content on the construction of this table. Please like and subscribe. I hope to catch you in the next one.